got the carriage and the track picked up with the come along, and I got the trailer pulled out of the way. Got it up on these stands, these sawhorses. I got it slid over out of the way where it's out of the middle of the floor. Here I clamped it down with a couple of C-clamps, one on each one of these horses there to kind of hold it, because it's still kind of tippy. It still wants to kind of come down over, not all the way on this side with the carriage down, but it wants to come down. Of course, all the jewelry and everything is right here, so that's the heavy section of it. I wished I'd have been able to get that blade off of there when I had it on there, and I should have taken that off when I had it on the trailer. Now it's going to be a pain to get it off. But now that I've got it tipped over, I can see over on the underside of it a lot better, and I can see how things work better there. And then I understand this up here a lot better now too. One of the things I couldn't figure out is what this lever was for here, and that's a trip lever. Well, when you put the mill, the carriage drive in forward, and it reaches a certain point, then there's a little tapered plunger that comes up on that, which trips that, and then it drops it down into reverse. And this little hydraulic cylinder plunger that I saw that's hooked on there with a spring, that's just a damper to keep that from dropping down there too hard. It's got a spring on it to pull it down into reverse, but that's a damper to keep it from pulling too hard. I think this chain here is froze up because that thing should be turning free. So that's one of the things that I'll probably look for a master link on that chain and see if I can't get that apart. And then maybe I can get this thing rocking back and forth, but I think ultimately I'm going to want to take it off of here. There's just too many parts and pieces on here to clean up. See, there's bearings in here on these rollers. Then there's the big rollers here, the main rollers. And the drive has a bearing in it. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of moving parts in there that don't necessarily move the way they're supposed to, that need to be cleaned up, that I can get now. Anyway, that's kind of set up there now. Got it. Well, it's the afternoon of January 6th. I haven't got much done the last couple of days. Yesterday, the forecast was for it to blow and rain, heavy rain, and I think we got probably 3 inches of rain yesterday. It was blowing 25 to 30 steady with gusts up to 50 or 60. And so even though I'm inside the shop here, still rain and stuff blows in here in this open side. I didn't really feel like getting out here and doing anything. And kind of the same thing today. The wind died down, but it poured down rain. And I've just been kind of frustrated with this. It doesn't come apart very easily. I still don't have it all figured out exactly how it all works, but it's not meant to come apart very easy, I guess. So this first rod I took out goes here, and that's one that has a string or something for a trip to trip the reverse on this. And that rod goes from the boss here that's welded onto this standoff here that this rack goes through, that the raises and lowers that upper edger blade, and it goes through there, and it comes down here and goes through a little hole in this front edge of this carriage, this plate of the carriage that the engine mounts to. It goes through a lower hole on that. Well, it was just hooked in with a cotter pin on this end, and then there's a little arm that goes off of it that goes over here to trip this forward reverse lever, and that was held on with a cotter pin. So you'd think the thing would be easy to get out, but it had an arm here on this end, and it had a 90-degree bend on this end, and then it had an attachment on this end that has a lever that sticks out, and that's the trip lever. Well, that was hooked in there. It goes over and it's clamped onto that rod with a set screw, and of course I couldn't get the set screw out. I had to get the torch and heated it up, finally got the set screw out, and then somebody had painted this with some exo rust on top of the orange paint that come on it, the factory paint, and it was too thick to get that stuff off with, so I wound up having to get a wire brush out, clean the paint off and everything, and then heat that arm back up again to go down on the shaft, and finally got it off. And then I was able to pull this arm out this way and get it off of there. Actually, I had to turn it up, and I was able to follow it out this way on the hook on this end, because there's a welded on piece attached to this side over here. Well, I was working on this, I guess you'd call it a disengagement lever for the travel. I was working on this lever trying to get it out, and I managed to, well, I got the chain off. I found a master link on the chain and I got the chain off. So this carriage is moving a little bit now, but it's still really stiff. And I took the gear off. There was a C-clip on here, a snap ring actually, not a C-clip, but a snap ring on here, and it held that coupler on. And so now I've got to figure out how to get this arm off of here. But this arm, where it's bent down on this end, it touches on all the framework there, so I can't get it to rotate far enough to get this clutch dog out of there. So I have to figure that out. And then we've got the crank. I guess I better move this back a little bit here. And we have this crank here that has a pinion gear on it that engages with this rack that raises and lowers the edger blade. That had a roll pin in it for the pinion gear to hold it on, the pinion gear to turn it. And then on this end down here, it's got this indicator. Turns with it. Well, the indicator was held on there with a couple of set screws. And of course it was froze on there too. I couldn't get it off. I actually bent one of my Allen keys trying to get that out of there. So I had to take some heat on that to heat it up to get those set screws loosened up, and I was able to get those loose. But I have to be careful with this, of course, because it's aluminum and it'd be easy to melt that. And then again, this shaft was all crudted up with paint and stuff on it, so I couldn't get that to move on it. I had to get the wire brush, clean it up. And then this end of the shaft, it goes through a couple of bronze bushings, one on each side of the pinion gear, and then it has a sleeve pressed on this end to raise the diameter. And this is the pinion gear here. So anyway, that was tight in there, and so I had to clean all the paint off of this to get this to slide off. But then of course it won't slide all the way off the end because it's got this shaft on the end of it. Oh, maybe I can work it out of there. There it comes a little bit. Okay, I got that out of there. Now I don't know, I'd like to clean this up separately, powder coat it a different color, and make sure that these numbers on here stand out. So we get those numbers out there so that they're nice and clean and easy to see. And then this shaft has a little bit of pitting on it, so I'd like to get it cleaned up and painted up. So probably wind up having to press that sleeve off of there, probably maybe make a new one and put on there. So anyway, this is kind of frustrating. There's some bolts and stuff in here that can come out to loosen all this stuff up, but they're blind back in here, and I don't know if the nuts are captured on or welded in or not. If the nuts were welded in to whatever this is bolted down to, then that would be fine. But if they're just loose nuts on there. Now we got this crank here that adjusts that idler stop for the edger blades. That's the same thing. This shaft is pressed. Oh, there's a pin on that. Okay, it's got a 5/8 inch shaft on, threaded shaft on there that turns and raises and lowers that, or pushes in and out on that stabilizer. So I'll have to see if I can get that out to slide that off to see if I can get that shaft out of that end. Anyhow, it's not as much fun as it could be, but we're getting it a little bit at a time. And of course, the more I work on it, the more I understand how it works, so that's a good thing. Hey, puppy dog. Hey, puppy dog. Oh, that's my girl. Yes, I'm happy to see you too. Oh, yes, that's my girls. That's my girls. Saki, that's my girls. Oh, yes, that's my girls. Oh, that's my girls. Oh, yes. Ooh. Oh, yes, that's my girl. Oh, it's happy to see you, yeah. I got a couple more of the shafts on the other side there on the top out, and a few more things taken off of that side. So it's still a pain in the butt trying to figure it all out, but some of the things I think I need to get down here on the bottom side to get access to the nuts and bolts and stuff, and to get things apart. So one of the things I decided to do necessary here is to take these edger blades off. This lower edger blade is fixed, and it's held onto the main shaft there with what is there, 6, 8. They're Allen head, flathead screws. Anyway, they were full of garbage, full of sawdust and wood fibers and stuff. I took a probe there and cleaned those out. Then I took the torch and used a little bit of heat on them. Now, generally heating up the bolt will expand it, and what you want to do is shrink it. You want to expand the piece that it's going into instead. But sometimes heating these nuts and bolts up and stuff will cause them to expand, and then when they shrink back down, they'll loosen up. So that was the idea I had there. But I just got to looking, and on the back side of this, those will have nuts on them. They're a fiber lock nut, and I can see now they're a 1/4 inch. Those will take a 7/16 inch wrench on those. So maybe if I had some of these, I got loosened up with driver here, and some of them I couldn't. The heads, they're stripped out. See that one? They got loosened. And it's coming, and that's not turning. But some of them, the heads are pretty close to being stripped out, and of course you can't get the thing in there all the way because of the crap. Then you're just going to strip it out even worse. So that one has been boogered up there. Well, I'm thinking maybe what I can do is get on the back side of it with a wrench, see if I can loosen the nuts up there. Getting a wrench in there is going to be a booger. Let's see what I can do with these. That one broke loose. That one still won't go in there. That one won't go in. That one won't go in at all. That one don't want to turn, it wants to twist. That one broke loose. Alright. Well, I got 4 of them loose and 4 of them aren't. Well, we'll see what we can do with those 4 that won't come loose. Nothing else, I'll have to drill them out and replace them. Probably shouldn't have going to replace them anyway. It'd be nice to get them out without having to drill them out. One of the things that happens when you apply heat to those fiber lock nuts, they've got a plastic insert in the nut, and when you get them hot, that plastic melts, and then they no longer have a locking function on them. It loosens them up. That's why we can't use them in the engine compartment of the airplane if they get really hot. If you hold them in there where there's heat, like the engine compartment of the airplane, and when they get hot, that fiber in there distorts, and then it's no longer a locking mechanism, and the nut's no longer locking like they're self-locking like that. Now, if I lived in a place where you could get dry ice, I'd get a little chip of dry ice and touch to each one of those now that they're hot, and that'll cause them to shrink down. If I put it right on the bolt head, the bolt itself would shrink down, and the part inside wouldn't shrink, and it would get it out. And I've done that before with snow, with ice. Oops, that's not the right one there. And it's worked out really well. I've had parts that I couldn't hardly get out fall right apart. Just heating them up and putting a little bit of ice on them. Yeah, that ain't gonna turn. I might be able to get on there with a wrench if I turn these around down like that. I don't want to lay down underneath that thing. I'm afraid it might fall down on me. Yeah, I still can't get in there on them because that other blade's in the way. Actually, I can push that other blade out of the way. Dumb shit. There we go. Alright. That's turning off easy. It may just be a locking nut on there instead of being the whole thing. It may just be for a locking nut on those screws. Well, there's one nut came off, and that's what they are. They're just a thin an AN 364. But that is also threaded into that end of that shaft. Those are just used as a locking mechanism. Hey, now that tells me something. These nuts are just lock nuts on there, and it's still threaded into the end of that shaft. So if I that boss there. So if I heat that up some more, and not so much the screws, maybe they'll loosen up in the hole. So I've been putting the heat mainly on the screws and not on the shaft itself. Anyway, that's how that thing comes off there. I can also heat this up, and I've got all those nuts loosened up back there, so the threads are exposed. So I can go ahead and heat this up, and then I can squirt a little bit of penetrating oil on those threads where they stick out through that flange, and then maybe that'll creep on there and help loosen those up. Okay, well, I got 2 of them out. There's an impact driver. Those other 2 are just, the wrench is just spinning in it. Let's see if I can get them to drive in far enough, maybe to just get some purchase on them, I don't know. No, not that one. No, neither one of those. Those are going to have to be drilled out. 6 out of 8's not bad, I guess. 8 out of 8 would have been better. Yeah, I got my drill out here. I got 2 of them there to drill out. They're just too bad to get out. So I got my 1/2-inch drill, electric drill motor out, and I got a 5/16 drill bit in there. That'll take that head off cleanly. I'd rather had a 9/32. That sucker ain't gonna cut that. Not sharp enough. Alright, I gotta go find a sharp bit maybe. Maybe those things are too hard to cut out with a drill. But we'll see. I'll go see if I can find a sharp bit someplace. Okay, that's a brand new bit. We'll see what happens with it. That makes a difference. There we go. Okay. There, come off. There's the blade off. I'll have to get those 2 studs out of there. I might have to drill those out, get an easy out or something, and see if I can get those out of there. But I may be able to do that off the machine. 2 bolts right here, hold that bearing on there. Yeah, that's what I have to do. I take these 2 bolts out of there, which will drop that bearing down, that shaft down. But this is what I was trying to get off, is all of this crap here for that shoe, so I can get it loosened up, cleaned up, and adjusted. See, there's a bearing here. That one is rolling free, but well, it's not free, it's rolling. It might not be too bad. This one here is harder than a banker's heart. It's just froze up tight. So if I take this shaft here, yeah, that's the adjuster shaft. I take this shaft off. There's 2 bolts up there on that top. These 2 bolts right here. And then that takes this whole rigmarole off of there. Well, there's a bolt here on this roller here, this guide roller. Well, let's keep moving forward. Get this thing so far apart, we'll never get it back together. The big pipe that goes up there, a bunch of stuff attaches to, and it looks like this shoe right here attaches to that. So that shoe may not be quite so easy to get off there as I thought. Yeah, that's all welded solid onto there. These nuts. I turn those off. Oh, well, look at that, won't you? There goes that screw right there. Turned out. Now I got to get something to hold on to that and unloosen that nut again. Get something maybe a little better than a pair of dikes. Let's see what we can find. Get in here out of the rain. Good boy. Get in here out of the rain. Come on. That's a boy. Come in here, lay down. Yeah, come in here. That's a boy. Good boy. Come in, lay down now. So get out of the rain. That's a boy. Good boy. Okay. Now what do I do with that wrench? There it is. Too many places to put things. Alright, there's one of them came out. That was good. Let's see what we can do about the other one now. That's doing the same thing. I don't know whether I'll get a hold of it or not. I drilled it in a little farther. I don't have as much meat on that one to hang on to. Alright, well. I think what I can do with that one is go ahead and drill that out with a smaller drill bit. Put an easy out in it. Then I'll have something to hold on to. Well, I got a 3/16 drill bit I'm using that got more meat out to stick out of there. I can get this Wished I could see. Alright, there we go. Good job there, no damage to the threads on that flange there. So that was good news. This shaft here, this control shaft here, can come out. There's a cotter pin here, and if I take that apart on the other side there, on the top side, I can get that shaft off of there. I need to figure out how this idler here works, how to get it put in the right place there, how to get it to adjust and move in and out like it's supposed to.